Hello, Mark and Teresa from Out Office Camping. Thanks for stopping by and checking out our channel. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. We cover a lot of overland content, off-grid stuff. With that being said, Dan from Massachusetts is going to go ahead and show us his Victron system in his Ford Ranger, which he has a GFC camper that he's running on. Stay to the end so he can be sure to kind of cover some of my thoughts, see what those are, and then also we'll be including some links to Dan's blog articles, which really do cover a how-to process, along with a couple other thoughts that I have as to some other YouTubers that you might want to check out to help you along with the process.
This is Dan Honeyman. This is my 2020 Ford Ranger with a GFC version 2. And in this video, we're going to dive a little bit more deeply into the Victron system and my battery system and the decisions I made, why, and how I got it to work. So I thought like a good way to start, we'll just pop the hood here, which I already have unlatched. So this is, you know, the EcoBoost engine. There's not a lot of room in here. There's no space for a second alternator. I hope somebody at some point comes out with a high output alternator. The alternator itself, it depends on temperature and stuff, but like the output of the stock Ford alternator is between 130, 170 amps, depending on how fast the engine's running and temperature. But truck battery, I added down here, it's just a small fuse block, and this here is more for my radio and the dash cam in the truck cab. The thing that I wanted to show for the Victron system, we have a 100 amp breaker here, and what this, it does double duty because in the other video I talked about my S-Pod system and the ARB, the air inflator that I have, and that's in the truck bed on the driver's side front quarter in the truck bed. So this does double duty. It's 1 gauge line. The ARB air takes 20 amps when that's running, when I'm doing the tires. It also powers the lights, but I can also use that for what's called a DC-DC charge controller. And where I camp in the Northeast, a lot of times I'm parked in the shade. So even though I have this solar panel up top, this solar panel, I got it for the wind sharing aspect, you know, aerodynamics. But the way that I park in my driveway at home, this gets a lot of sun during the day. And what I wanted to do is make sure that my 2 Battleborn batteries, I have 2 100 amp Battleborn batteries, this keeps it topped off and happy. A lot of times I take my Dometic fridge and I put it inside when I'm not camping, but if I'm going back and forth, lots of short trips, that stays there. So the solar for me is not about keeping or like charging back up my batteries, because the problem I have is, like I said, I park in the shade a lot. So really the DC charger, because I can pull 30 amps off that when I'm driving. So on my best day, we were camping in the Valley of the Gods in Utah. I got 600 watt hours, well, just shy of 600 watt hours. So if you divide that by 12, that's 50 amp hours. So I got that for the whole day with it just sitting in the sun doing else. So that's basically less than 2 hours of driving, pulling off the alternator. So it depends on your camping style. I know Mark and I talked about this a bit. He likes to, when he camps, he goes, sets up camp, and they stay put for like 3 or 4 days. So solar in that case, and maybe even portable solar, because then you can be parked in the shade with your truck or your vehicle, and you can have like an extension line for your solar portable, put that in the sun, because it helps my system if the cooler's not getting hot because I parked it right in the full sun. That kind of helps as well. So I wanted a system where because I'm in the Northeast and I don't get as much sun, the solar's really for when I'm at home to keep my system topped off. I wanted to focus more on the alternator and recharging that way. And I did look at like the portable battery bank units, like the Bluetti, EcoFlow, Jackery. They're all perfectly fine. But a lot of them at the time I was looking, like the most, you could plug it into a cigarette lighter port and you could get like 10 amps. So in the other video you saw like the gadgets that I run, like if I'm boiling water and stuff like that, You know, if I boil a liter of water, I'm going to have to drive for an hour in order to, you know, recharge the battery. So to me, it made more sense to go with Victron. At some point, you know, with the previous Ranger model, there are high output alternators now for the older ones. So somebody's going to come up with that eventually, and then I'll put that in, and that'll double the amount of amps that I can pull. In the back here, part of my design, so I have this box, my main cutoff switch. This is a breaker switch, which you're going to want for the solar. It really isn't safe unless you have a way to cut the power to the battery bank when you're working on stuff. So make sure you have your cutoff switch where, like, see, mine are nice and high, so it's easily accessible. I think these are called, it's one of those funny things. You guys may have seen these things where you have a cable coming in and there's a plastic enclosure and there's a rubber seal. I believe those are called rubber glands. So, like, you know, like skin glands. So that's what those are called. I got a kit of those. So like, I have some that actually go vertically through my truck bed. So that 1 gauge line off the battery that I mentioned, that powers the ARB compressor and my DC charge controller, they actually come up through the floor, and those rubber glands, you want to use rust seal and maybe paint them because you don't want your bed to rot out. But that gives you a nice watertight way to drill through your truck bed or like through the GFC wall and keep, you know, water out. Just remember, you know, if you drill through steel, you need to, like, worry about rust. Don't leave it bare and just put that in. Now with this, you know, it took me a while, and like, I was using cardboard boxes. I had the components on my work. The pipe that you see between these boxes, that's for the wire. So I believe the large middle one, that's for my positives. The one below is for the negatives. So I kind of kept my positive and the negative lines. One of the things I would recommend, I got plans from Explorist Life. We'll link that in the description. Explorist Life also has a YouTube channel. He does a lot of camper van Victron stuff. He really knows his stuff. I learned a lot watching him. So I definitely would recommend watching his stuff. Mark's got some pictures here. So again, we got switches behind my Progressive RV distribution panel, which behind here is my MPPT controller. This is the thing where it gets a little bit tricky. So if you already have like a decent sized Jackery or a Bluetti EcoFlow, like the portable lithium battery banks, to me, you can kind of make those work. And I've seen some videos where what some people have figured out, because you do have a lot of those, there's a 10 amp charging limit when you're charging from the 12 volt, like your cigarette port. But what some guys do is they either use like an inverter, like right off their alternator. So you got your 12 volt battery alternator system in the truck, and they use an inverter to supply AC power right to the Bluetti or like the portable battery unit. So you can kind of like pretend, you know, instead of charging like off your household power, you're using an inverter off your truck battery to supply the AC power that it needs, and they charge very efficiently. In the picture Mark will show you, I took this all apart, and you can see the Victron bus bar system. The Victron bus bar, it's very thick metal, very, very dense. So when you're supplying a lot of amps at that 12 volt level, the wires have to be big. The you know, what you're hooking into, the bus bars have to be big. So I think with those portable battery units, partly why they only allow 10 amps of that 12 volt power is because inside they've kept the bus bars and stuff like that smaller, the wire smaller, because they're running things at a higher voltage, and that helps keep the weight down. You don't want those portable battery units to be heavy. It's just, you have to be creative. If you're overlanding, you don't have a household power plug, how are you going to get the thing recharged? So that's where you have to be creative. Some guys have used the solar connection, so they have like a gadget off the truck battery, and they up it to like 48 volts. So there's all kinds of solutions, but that's one of the things you have to think about with those portable battery units is, like, if you're going to be out for weeks at a time, how are you going to recharge the thing if you don't have an AC, plug, an AC outlet to plug into? Are you going to spend a day when it's nice out, when the sun's out, and get your folded portable solar out? I hate doing that because, like, if it's nice out, I want to be off hiking, biking, doing fun stuff. So that's just, it's a tough call, because for weekend camping, I think those portable battery units are awesome. They're very cost effective. It's definitely cheaper. I'm definitely, with wires and everything, I'm somewhere in my Victron system and the wiring, it's somewhere in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. But like, if one component fails, I just have to fix that component. So with the portable battery units, if something fails, you're going to void the warranty if you crack it open. So you're going to have to ship it to somebody, and now you got nothing for a month until it comes back, if you're lucky. So these are the things you have to factor in. And I know everybody's on a budget. For me, I retired. I've planned to be able to do this for a long time. A lot of my build, I compare it to my friends. He's got like almost like a Winnebago Revel van. So to me, it's like, for me, it's all relative, right? This is my cost-effective way. But I know compared to some of you guys, this seems crazy expensive. So it's all what you're comparing to. It's what stage of life you're in. If you're a young guy, you don't need all this stuff. Just go out, have fun. I'm not trying to say my solution's the best. So everything's, there are pros and cons. Everything's a compromise. You just got to figure out what makes best sense for you. And I think for me, having the 2,000 watt inverter, I've gotten, more into cooking and stuff, so I can run my Instant Pot, I can run the hot water kettle. Mark's going to lift the foam thing. One of the things you have to keep in mind, and we have a picture underneath this, in the winter, I'm using the foam to keep my batteries warm, and I definitely did the heating pad trick. That worked well. Batteries, to me, it's kind of like lithium batteries, lithium iron phosphate batteries. They're kind of like people. They are happiest when, it's 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. They don't like it when in lithium ion, especially. If it gets lithium ion, I think in the Jackeries, if it gets below, and it's weird because it could be 32 degrees out, but if the battery's been working, it'll stay warmer. But the lithium ion, you can't even pull energy from them with the lithium ion once it gets below 32 degrees, like once it's freezing. With lithium iron phosphate, you're good to, like, they vary, but like it'll be minus Fahrenheit something. So you can pull from them at a much lower temperature. Charging, though, it's got to be in the mid 20s. That, like, for Europe, that's like the -3 to -5 Celsius. So it's not that cold. So you just need to get it slightly above freezing to be able to charge, and that's fairly easy to do with really, Falco 12-volt heating pads. You don't need that many. Surround it with foam, and you can winter camp. So you just have to kind of do what's in your budget, what you need. If you're only doing weekend stuff, this is overkill. But the nice thing, I think, is there's enough tech, enough gadgets out there now. There's just so many ways to solve the problem. So just do what works for you. So I guess one last thought as we wrap up here. You also still have the roof on top of the GFC panel. Now for me, I've been talking a lot, do what's right for you. You'll see I have the Good Boy Kayaks rack. It's slid all the way over for winter time so I can get the snow off more easily. Normally I have that in the middle because I always have a kayak up there. So for me, I was first trying to think of, can I get a flexible solar thing on my ski box? For me, I can't use my roof too much, but for you guys, if you don't do the kayaking and you don't got the ski, look at all that real estate. So you can go, I wouldn't go vertically, but you can squeeze in, like, the flexible solar panels in between. You could easily get another 300 watts of solar on there. So, if you had something like this, 3 there, that's like 400 watts of solar. My 200 amp battery bank, that's 2,400 watt hours. So you're talking like if you were completely drained, 7 to 8 hours of sunlight, you'd be fully recharged. So, there's different ways to go about this. It depends on where you live, what you're doing. Are you in the shade? Do you carry stuff on the roof? I can't tell you what the right answer is because everybody has different needs. So just don't be intimidated. Start small if you have to. There's such cool tech right now that's not that expensive relatively. And, everybody can have fun. So it's just, you don't have to rough it, just to be a real camper. You know, there's lots of cool stuff. Make it more comfortable.
So in closing, just wanted to cover a few things, a few of my thoughts. Power stations versus a built system. If you're looking to do a built system, there's a really great book by Will Prouse, also DIY Solar, is a great YouTube channel, check that out. This is his book you can pick up on Amazon, very affordable. I'd highly suggest you checking it out if you're looking to build a system. Also, if you're actually looking to maybe buy a power station, just understand a little bit more, Hobotech has a really nice channel, covers a lot of technical information, and also really gives you a good sense of what the different categories are that you should be considering when you're looking to make a choice as to a power station. So check out his YouTube channel. With that being said, a couple thoughts that I have basically with power stations. It's really nice. The benefits of the power stations is that they're portable. You can take them anywhere you go. We use this bigger Bluetti AC200 inside our home when we're not camping. Run our air fryer and some other larger components and lights and stuff like that. Smaller unit we use to charge up a lot of our devices, and we have our solar panels set up. So it's really nice. We can utilize some of these things. A built-in system, you don't have that opportunity. A built-in system also takes up a little bit more space, but the benefits of a built-in system, it's a lot like a home stereo system back in the day. If a component goes bad, you can basically go ahead and replace that component. Versus if you have like an all-in-one unit, which is more like a boombox, if one component goes bad, like say the radio or the CD player or something like that, you're throwing the whole thing away, or a speaker, and that's the downside. You know, also what's nice with the portable power station is that basically it is portable. It's a little bit more lightweight. Everything's built in, and when it's all said and done, you're actually going to probably save a little bit of money because it's a smaller system. Personally, I'd suggest for your average kind of get out and do things, you know, a weekend, a couple days or something like that, depending on what your availability is for recharging it, whether solar or just off the vehicle. Something like a 1,000 watt unit would be great. This is a 2,000 watt. This happens to be a 500. I would not pick up something, if you get in something like the 2,000 watts, they start to get a little heavy, a little bit bigger and bulkier. The benefit of going with maybe like a couple like 1,000s are that they're smaller, a little bit lighter. You could have two of them. To get that like 2,000, use two different components. Like say you're doing a longer trip, you could just take the two of them. Also, you have a backup system in case one does fail, you still have a unit. The benefit too, like, you know, if one fails and you have to send it back to get serviced, you have a backup. You have some kind of power. So I think that the 1,000 watt units is a good mid-range, a good starting point. Some of the smaller units, just noticed that Bluetti, I believe, just released the 600 that has expandable batteries. You know, EcoFlow has had the expandable batteries. You know, more and more of that stuff is just changing every day. It won't be long, I believe, until we see systems like the Victron or portable system, built-in systems that will have, you know, almost be like an all-in-one where you can buy like essentially the main unit, the head unit, or whatever you want to call it, and then you can just kind of plug in the components that you need. So I believe that's going to be coming shortly. It's just changing so quick that you don't want to make a huge investment or a huge commitment, but really think about how you're going to use it, where it's going to sit, and what you really want to get out of it. I hope you found this video helpful. Once again, with some of those different links and some of my favorite links, I'll put them below as to things that I found helpful from other YouTube channels that may help you along with your process in making a good choice as to what fits your power needs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Happy camping.